There is one moment in that interview where Belmont Cameli completely stops being a co-star and becomes something else entirely. His eyes shift, his voice drops, and Ella Bright catches it. You can see the exact second she does. Nobody on that press tour talked about this, and once you see it, you genuinely cannot explain it away as good acting. Welcome back. If you're new here, this channel covers the moments that the PR teams don't write into the script. The real ones. And today we're going all the way in on Belmont and Ella, because this off-campus press run has been full of them. But there is one specific moment that keeps coming up in the comments, and keeps getting screen recorded by people who clearly can't stop thinking about it either. Stay until the end, because I have one clip that I've watched probably 30 times, and I still don't have a clean explanation for it. Let's get into it. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now. This channel is literally where the details live. Before we get to the moment, let's establish something. Ella Bright and Belmont Cameli did a lot of press for off-campus. That's normal. What's not normal is how those interviews kept veering off the professional rails and into something that felt genuinely personal. Most co-stars have a rhythm. They answer the same questions the same way after about the third stop. They're polished, they're charming, they make eye contact with the interviewer, not each other. Belmont and Ella didn't do that. There's a pattern across multiple interviews where the two of them would start a question meant for one person and end up having a conversation between themselves, forgetting the interviewer was even there. Body language experts have a term for this. It's called a closed dyad. When two people physically angle themselves toward each other and away from everyone else in the room, even in a public setting, it usually signals deep familiarity or something more. These two were doing it constantly. But the moment I want to show you today wasn't one of those obvious ones. It was actually in a quieter interview. Low stakes, no screaming fans, just the two of them, a camera, and a question neither of them expected to hit that hard. By the way, if you're the kind of person who notices the small stuff, you belong here. Subscribe and I'll keep bringing you exactly this kind of breakdown. The question was something along the lines of, what did working on this project teach you about yourself? Standard, safe, the kind of question that usually gets a practiced answer about growth and gratitude and trusting the process. Ella answered first, and her answer was exactly what you'd expect. Warm, articulate, professional. She talked about vulnerability and learning to be present on set. Beautiful answer. The interviewer smiled. Everything was going fine. And then the camera cut to Belmont. He starts his answer. Normal enough. And then, mid-sentence, his gaze goes from the interviewer directly to Ella. Not a glance, not a quick check, a full turn, a sustained, deliberate look at her face while he finishes his thought. And what he says in that moment is that the project taught him what it feels like to be completely seen by someone. Pause. He says that, looking directly at her, not at the camera, not at the interviewer, at her. And you can feel it. That's not blocking. That's not a script note that said, look at your co-star here for emotional effect. That is a man who said something true and knew who he was saying it to. Now here's where it gets interesting. And this is the part that the comments can't stop dissecting. Ella's reaction. She doesn't laugh it off. She doesn't do the co-star thing where you smile and nod and keep things light. She holds eye contact for a beat that is just a fraction too long for professional comfort. And then she looks down. Not away. Down. That's a very specific gesture. Looking away is deflection. Looking down is processing. She was processing something. You can feel it. She couldn't hide it. And honestly, she didn't try very hard to. Now I know what some of you are thinking. They're actors. They're good at this. Fair. But here's what I'd say back to that. Actors are trained to perform emotion on command. They are not trained to suppress it on command, especially in low-pressure situations where nobody told them to perform anything. In a press interview, the job is controlled. What we saw was the opposite of controlled. What we saw was a leak. This wasn't the only moment. Once you know what to look for, you start seeing it everywhere in their press run. There's an interview where they're asked about their favorite scene to film. Belmont's answer takes about 20 seconds, and in that 20 seconds, he touches his face twice, which is a self-soothing gesture that shows up when someone is either nervous or trying to regulate emotion. This is a man who, in every other interview, is relaxed and composed. Something about that specific question, in that specific moment, with that specific person sitting next to him, activated something. Then there's the laughing. The way these two laugh with each other is, and I don't use this word lightly, intimate. There's a difference between two people who are friendly and two people who have developed a private shorthand. The inside joke laugh, the one where your eyes go to each other before you've even finished the punchline because you both already know, that's not something you manufacture. That's something that builds over time in close proximity. And Ella is not passive in this either. She initiates. She's the one who leans in. She's the one who finishes his sentences in a way that suggests she's been listening very closely for a long time. In one clip, she corrects something he says, gently, casually, without making it weird, in a way that you only do with someone you know well enough to trust that they won't take offense. That's a level of ease that doesn't come from a few months on a press tour. The comments section under these clips is genuinely fascinating, because the people watching are sharp. They're time-stamping, they're slowing down footage, they're comparing clips from early in the press tour to clips from later and tracking a shift. And the consensus that keeps emerging is this: something changed. The early interviews feel different from the later ones. The early ones are warm but still professional. The later ones feel like someone removed a layer. Like both of them, somewhere along the way, stopped performing and started just being. One comment that really stuck with me said, "Real or just good acting? Because I've been watching this on loop and I can't figure it out." That's exactly the right question. And I think the honest answer is that we might not need to figure it out. Because the reason it's impossible to tell is that it doesn't matter which answer is technically correct. What matters is that the feeling lands as real. And that's either because it is real, or because something between them has gotten close enough to real that even they can't tell the difference anymore. Because now that you have the full picture, I want you to watch it again in your head. What did this project teach you about yourself? What it feels like to be completely seen by someone. Said while looking at her. If you wrote that line in a script, someone would cut it for being too on the nose, too much, too obvious. But it wasn't in a script. It came out of his mouth in real time, in front of a camera, and he didn't walk it back, didn't laugh it off, didn't add a joke to neutralize it. He just let it sit there. And she let it sit there too. That is the moment. That is the one that nobody who was in that room or watching it could fully explain. That is the moment Belmont forgot he was just a co-star. So here's where I land on this. You cannot watch that body language, those glances, that particular moment, and come away with a clean, professional explanation. Something is there. Whether it's fully real, still developing, or something they're choosing to keep private. The evidence is in the footage. And by the way, if you want more of this, the Lucarin deep dives, the Benedict content, all of it, it's all on this channel, and it's exactly this kind of breakdown every single video. Now I want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments. Real, or just really good acting? Let me know below. I read every single one.